We have a special place in our heart for our hatred of CNN and their content, and we didn't think they could get any worse. But they did. But good for you, CNN, you go-getters. You keep outdoing yourself. They have a special about extremism in America. And spoiler alert, it's almost all about you. Because, you didn't vote the way all those journalists and anchors and teleprompter readers on CNN demanded that you vote. You went ahead and voted for Donald Trump along with the majority of your countrymen in America. Therefore, you're an extremist. And so watch this one snippet that's really making the rounds. There's a lot in this show that we're going to share with you, but this in particular will catch your hair on fire. This is Taylor Lorenz. Up until a few months ago, she was a reporter in good standing for the Washington Post. Before that, the New York Times. And now that she's independent, she's been focusing on Luigi Mangione, the accused murderer who shot in cold blood the CEO of a health insurance company on the streets of New York. She has made him a cause celeb. And she was asked about that. And here's what she had to say.
Hilarious to see these millionaire media pundits on TV clutching their pearls about someone standing a murderer when this is the United States of America, as if we don't lionize criminals, as if we don't have, we don't stand murderers of all sorts and we give them Netflix shows. There's a huge disconnect between the narratives and angles that sort of mainstream media pushes and what the American public feels. And you see that in moments like this. And I can tell you, I saw the biggest audience growth that I've ever seen because people were like, oh, some journalist is actually speaking to the anger that we feel.
The women who gather outside court in New York.
So you're going to see women, especially, that feel like, oh my God, right? Like, here's this man who's revolutionary, who's famous, who's handsome, who's young, who's smart. He's a person that seems this morally good man, which is hard to find.
Yeah, I just realized women will literally date an assassin before they swipe right on me. That's where we are. I'm sure you wouldn't like to be compared to a Trump supporter, but some of how people cannot understand why people have sympathies for Mangione strikes me as the same as a lot of media not understanding why people support Trump.
I totally agree.
It's because a lot of people are just really, really desperate.
They want somebody to take on the system. They want somebody to tear down these barbaric establishment institutions.
Where to begin? First, I hope you caught the fact that the President of the United States, the leader of the free world, the head of the executive branch of our government, and the commander-in-chief of our armed forces, who has been elected to the presidency for a second time, some would say a third time, who won overwhelmingly in this last election, not only the popular vote, which really isn't a thing in America, but if you care about that, he won it, and he won every single swing state across the board, probably the most dominant electoral performance we've seen in decades. He was just compared to a cold-blooded murderer without hesitation, without even blinking. They made that comparison. And I pretend like they've made some sort of really wise, circumspect, intellectual observation. I hope you caught that. I also want to break down a couple of other things here. Let's watch it together.
See these millionaire media pundits on TV clutching their pearls about someone standing a murderer when this is the United States of America, as if we don't lionize criminals, as if we don't have, we don't stand murderers of all sorts and we give them Netflix shows.
So we give murderers Netflix shows? Taylor, those are documentaries about the murderers. Like, I'm sorry you don't like the fact that people are into crime drama or true crime shows, but they're not to lionize and celebrate their murderers. I mean, unless you talk about the freaking Menendez brothers, which I'm with you. It's disgusting and despicable. But I think you're taking the wrong lesson from people's obsession with these murders. I mean, she is no different than one of the Manson girls right here. But it actually gets worse.
there's a huge disconnect between the narratives and angles the sort of mainstream media pushes and what the American public feels. And you see that in moments like this. And I can tell you, I saw the biggest audience growth that I've ever seen, because people were like, oh, some journalist is actually speaking to the anger that we feel.
I think she's taking the wrong lesson from that too. I have no doubt that this is the biggest audience growth that she's ever seen. See, up until now, her wheelhouse for the Washington Post and the New York Times was to pretend like she was a teenager on social media. Yeah, by the way, as you see this woman talk, you should know she's in her mid 40s. The joke around the internet about her was that she was like 60 or 70 years old. She's in her mid 40s, but she acts like, dresses like, wears her hair like, and talks like she's a teenager. She would, and her profile picture on TikTok and Instagram made her look like she was like 17, 18 years old. She would slip into the DMs of minors, including Kellyanne Conway's daughter when she was like 15 years old, befriend them and have them tell her secrets about her parents. And then she would report on this to the Washington Post and New York Times about the social media culture of young people in America. She's a predator. And I have no doubt that she's had this big growth surge in her audience. Number one, because that shtick was getting old over the last 10 years. But number two, yeah, there is a fascination with murder in this country. But she's taking this growth that she's had in her audience by covering the Luigi Mangione murder of this health insurance CEO as some sort of validation for the motive behind the murder. The two don't go hand in hand. I assure you, I could throw a lot of garbage at you every day on this show. Some real sewer dwelling, lowest common denominator crap. And we probably have a bigger audience. But I have more respect for you and more respect for myself than to do that. Not so much Taylor Lorenz. This is gross. But even grosser is the CNN guy's response to all of this.
The women who gather outside court in New York.
So you're going to see women especially that feel like, oh my God, right? Like here's this man who's revolutionary, who's famous, who's handsome.
Did I mention she's in her 40s? These women are going to be like, oh my God, it's just rich and he's handsome and he's famous. He's famous, but he's got a bullet in the man's back. He's famous because of ghouls like her putting a murderer on a pedestal. This man killed a woman's husband. There is a woman right now who was happily married, who is now a widow and has to raise her children alone because of the murderer that she's now lionized. I can't continue here, except to point out this moment that somebody grabbed with the caption that sort of says it all. I mean, that is an indictment of her. That is an indictment of Taylor Lorenz, that those words even came out of her mouth. But for a moment here, just for a moment, as we're condemning her, rightly so, for this lack of morality and lack of basic right and wrong, can we just pause a moment and spend a little more time, not on Taylor Lorenz, but on this guy? What is that? That's his face as he hears this woman talking about a cold-blooded murder, saying he's a person that seems like this morally good man, and he's famous and he's handsome, and gosh, it's no wonder that my audience has grown. And here's this guy thinking, boy, I hope it makes my audience grow too. I mean, this is what CNN put out there as the conversation about this murderer. And the show is called The Rise of Extremism in America, or it's not called that, but it's supposed to focus on it. And most of the conversation is about Trump supporters and how extreme they are. They have one moment to talk about this murderer. And please, if I did a show, a 1-hour show with the resources and staff and budget of CNN about the rise of extremism in America, I promise you that I would focus on, I don't know, the arson who just tried to murder the governor of Pennsylvania. He ain't no Trump guy. Or how about the people who are firebombing innocent people who drive Teslas or Tesla dealerships? They ain't Trump guys. How about Antifa, who have taken over major cities in this country during the BLM riots? Or how about every single college campus when someone who agrees with me politically shows up and they have to deal with the violence that goes along on a college campus, with the violence that goes along with those appearances? And yet none of that seemed to make it into this show. They talk about Luigi Mangione, and this is what CNN gives their viewers. That right there. I'll give you a perfect example. Here, watch this clip from the same show.
America was found, make America great again. To when they came and massacred the indigenous people, millions and millions of indigenous people.
But by supporting the murder of a healthcare CEO, doesn't that make your side as culpable?
I don't hear them condemning the Proud Boys, who he said stand by, whatever they start. Once they start condemning them, then I will reassess. But until then, no, I'm not reassessing.
Yeah.
About a third of the building has been blown away.
And while America's roots are soaked in bloodshed, violence in the country today is mostly from right-wing extremism. From Oklahoma City to Charlottesville to January 6th. There is simply no equivalent on the left.
What? There's no equivalent on the left. So first of all, he starts with Timothy McVeigh, which, I'm sorry, if you actually look at what he believed politically, it doesn't have a whole lot to do with conservatives in America. But that was the mid-90s. Then you go all the way to Charlottesville and then January 6th. And apparently there's no equivalent on the left. There's no equivalent on the left? Donny O'Sullivan? And maybe it's me, but I've got a thing about some dude with a foreign accent going on television airwaves and lecturing me about the politics in my country. You're doing a special about violent extremism in politics, and you're from Ireland? Ireland? Do you know anything about your country's history, Donny? Or about what's going on in your country right now? But this is what passes muster for intellectual broadcast news journalism at CNN. And if this guy seems familiar to you, there's a reason for that. Remember this golden oldie from the same dude with the same Irish accent? He should be going to get a Guinness and maybe having some Lucky Charms. But instead, he's taking his ignorance about the United States of America and showing the entire world what a buffoon he is.
Some people I've been speaking to trumpets recently have been saying America is not a democracy, it's a republic.
We've always been a democracy, first of all. I mean, we used to have freedom of speech, freedom of religion. We used to have that too. Now they're picking on the Christians and the Jewish people. I mean, how much more can we take?
Are you concerned if Trump loses?
Yeah.
That there will be another January 6th?
No, I think there will be a civil war. That's what I think will happen.
And Omar, look, there is, of course, a legitimate debate, discussion to be had on what form of democracy we have here in the United States. Direct democracy, representative democracy, in fact, constitutional republic, which you heard people mention in that piece, that is a form of democracy. But look, this is not actually a debate about government, about democracy. It's an attack on democracy. People have heard the warnings that Trump is a danger to democracy. And therefore, you have people trying to convince others that, well, the United States isn't a democracy in the first place, and therefore Trump can't be a threat.
Okay, so that's a hell of a leap that he took there. But look at the lower third chyron there. Some Trump supporters say America isn't a democracy. And he does this whole feature interviewing people saying, you won't believe this, but there are people out there who don't think America is a democracy, who think that America is a constitutional republic. Well, they think that because it's true. I'm like in La La Land here with this guy. This is the same guy. And again, this is the intellectual smart set on the Upper West Side of Manhattan who give the green light for these exposés by Donny O'Sullivan, who's trying to explain to you that these violent extremists who work with the Trump administration, the Trump campaign, don't think that America's a democracy. They think it's a constitutional republic. That's exactly what we are. We use democratic methods to choose our representatives, but they're 100% true. And what was that last takeaway? Well, if we're not a democracy, then Trump can't be a threat to it.
The warnings that Trump is a danger to democracy, and therefore you have people trying to convince others that, well, the United States isn't a democracy in the first place, and therefore Trump can't be a threat. Homer?
Wow. All right, listen, I don't want to pile on this guy, or make fun of his accent or anything like that, because it's charming and probably the most charming thing about him. And he has done some good journalism, to be sure. In fact, this may be our very favorite clip that Donny O'Sullivan has brought to the table. Here it is. Once again, this is his job. They send him out to try to get Trump supporters, preferably with a MAGA hat, to say something outrageous. And on this day, it worked. And it's gold.
What's your name, sir?
My name is Go F Yourself.
Right. And are you from Ohio?
No.
I don't know why, but the follow-up question, are you from Ohio, might be my favorite part. What? Okay, great. Just one other question. Are you from Ohio? Like, that would make a difference. This guy's a hero.
What's your name, sir?
My name is Go F Yourself.
Right. And are you from Ohio?
No.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's CNN for you. That's CNN telling you that you're the problem because you appropriately and correctly know that this is a constitutional republic and not a democracy. We just use democracy to choose our representatives in this constitutional republic. That you're the problem because you voted for Trump along with the majority of this nation. And you're the problem because you can't yuck it up and laugh about what a sexy dreamboat a cold-blooded murderer is. That's what CNN thinks of you. And I'm glad you don't watch them because they don't deserve your eyeballs. Thanks for planting them here instead.